it's good for Intel. What does Nvidia get out of it?
It's a good question. Nvidia gets a lot of positive elements out of these partnerships. First, they build goodwill with the US administration, making Intel like a strong player in the global tech ecosystem is a priority for the administration, making the company, one of the best assets we have to maintain leading edge manufacturing in the US. Then second, very simply, a lot of Nvidia clients were very keen to be able to have x86 within their giant Nvidia clusters. So Nvidia is simply answering a very simple request from these clients. And last but not least, with like the incredibly dominant position Nvidia has in the data center world, it's always good for Nvidia to show that they are not abusing their dominant position. And so opening NVLink, partnering with other players, giving access to other CPUs, in their GPU clusters is actually a very good thing to do. Then the downside for Nvidia is virtually nothing, because as Jensen put it yesterday, it's going to be about either selling ARM CPUs they purchased from TSMC or selling x86 CPUs they purchased from Intel.
Pierre, how much is this about the cooperation in developing chips and GPUs, and how much is this about the actual foundry? And this is sort of a distinction I'm not clear on.
Yeah, so the answer is actually very straightforward. Today, there is absolutely nothing about the foundry business. We don't even know whether these chips are going to be manufactured at Intel or at TSMC in reality. It's still an open-ended question. Remember, Intel is a very important client to TSMC. So anything about foundry would be like the second act or the part two of the turnaround effort of the new incoming CEO. And today there is nothing about it. It's all about being able to put an x86 Intel chip within the scale-up fabric, like this very high-speed interconnectivity between chips that Nvidia has developed.
The way that we've been talking about it, the way that I've been thinking about it is that the U.S. is taking a stake in Intel and maybe pushing others to do the same because of the self-reliance, or the future self-reliance or the hope of it on making chips in the United States. Is that the wrong story? Is that actually not the hopes and dreams of Intel? It's just survival to fight another day?
I think you're actually right, but it's both. So Libutan, the new CEO, has a very clearly laid out plan, and he has like a list of, I think, 10 priorities. One of these priorities is regain leadership in his product business. And that deal is really about that, and it's very important. Without leadership in their product business, it's going to be very difficult for Intel to be successful anywhere else. And one of these other priorities is about strengthening his balance sheet. His predecessor has been on a spending spree, investing a lot in manufacturing capacity. Now for Libutan, it's time to rebuild the balance sheet. So the combination of attracting the US government, SoftBank, Nvidia, and potentially others onto the balance sheet with cash injections is very important to Intel overall. And of course, Intel being strong, having a strong balance sheet and having a strong product business is critical to increase the chances for Intel to be successful as a manufacturer. So all that actually holds together. There isn't like a foundry versus product story for Intel. Intel has to restore both ends of the business.
Pierre, just a final question from me. I think we're all pretty familiar with how the West views Huawei, for instance. What I don't have the understanding of right now is the evolving view of China on Intel. Now the government has taken a stake, and effectively this has become a new baby investment for the White House, Pierre. What do the Chinese think about these developments?
That's a good question. Intel has been probably slightly below the radar screens of the Chinese for quite a long time. And now that Intel is coming back into the game, the question you're asking is going to become more and more relevant. And I would say historically, in the trade tensions, Intel has always been like a fairly protected player because of the strength of their ecosystem. The Chinese have a lot of very simple, very mundane, but very critical workloads running on x86, Intel x86 chips, that would be extremely difficult to migrate just because of ecosystem dependencies, all these software dependencies that rely on what's available in your existing, specifically Intel x86 environment. So probably for China, Intel is going to remain a target that would be very expensive to hurt, and that wouldn't really present a significant stake. So probably Intel is going to be all right in China. That would be, at this very early stage, my bet.